Yeah, and we are live with B1 Brother Moses. Man, salute. Sugar Daddy full effect. You see my background screen, man, which means I'm finna get into some creepy Stranger Things. I gotta go back into the dredges with this one because I know something that you don't know, which is strategy. And when it comes down to tactics, we've heard a lot of different tactics that have been rolled out. So strategically, I know what I know. And then tactically, I know that people are using certain tactics. And so, once again, I got to give you the disclaimers because I'm using material that is not my own material. You know, they got their original copyright holders. We attempt to ask for fair use protection, but we don't always get fair use protection. The information is public and shared via YouTube, via Instagram, via TikTok, and I try to show the actual like channel holders when I share that content. And so once we start bringing together the bigger picture, it's things are no longer linear. And so hopefully this approach kind of helps bring together some content with reactions. And I'll be here with you live as we go through the content. But on this episode, it gets pretty deep. You know, I had to take my tukus off. I even had to put on the Sugar Daddy shirt for this one because it gets pretty deep, right? And there are a lot of people who have a hallelujah good time on Sunday. And so I figured I hadn't provided the content that said what happens on Sundays. And we are dealing with folks who are making their transition from patriarchal systems or to transition from those traditional systems to which they were finding no benefit. And at best, they were having to accept silence and submission as a norm. And so those traditional ideologies and that traditional acceptance is being challenged. And because it's being challenged across mainstream media, we see the microcosm of it in our little spaces. So for those who have joined me here, I want to check the chat first before we get into the content. I say thank you, Empress Kaya, salute. B1 Brother Moses, and then Untold American History, salute. Thanks for your support, Miss Denova 24, salute. Thanks for your support as well. And I fervently believe in being able to multitask. So there are some people who are just going to have to get used to it. I'll be listening to multiple streams, and when I hear something, I'll be like, oh, okay, that's one thing. And then I hear something like, oh, okay, that kind of makes sense. Sometimes I don't turn off the stream. And so I'm getting a little bit of feedback where folks are like, well, it's not clear. All I hear is two people saying something at the same time. That's up to your brain to determine which argument you want to go with. But it's not for me to tell you how to think about the information that comes out. And oftentimes, because I'm long-winded by myself, people won't listen. And so what I'm hoping to do, first and foremost, shout out the GOAT. Shout out the GOAT, man. B1 salute to the GOAT. And then some people say, oh, the GOAT, the wife of the GOAT. But I say Taz and Nyla, I thought it was instinctual, but some may call it a learned behavior. And my respect for them and my introduction to the Black B1 network, they weren't even calling it the B1 network at that time. Again. And so my salute to them. People say, well, your loyalty, my loyalty is to death. And with that comes a great responsibility, right? And so being a shield, as Nyla says, as folks don't know, when it comes to grown women's vibes, being a shield for grown women's vibes as they were transitioning from the metaverse, which I swear to God, they keep saying metaverse as if Mark Zuckerberg isn't a real person whose company is called Meta. I swear to God, it will never make sense to me. They talk about NFTs and blockchain technology as if this is something they really don't understand. So I'll be like, man, what's wrong with these little dumb folks? Anyway, that being said, what I've witnessed in the space, some of us had to come forward and have that conversation anyway. And being a shield is not always the best position to be in. Some people think that it comes, I'll say it like that. Let me do this. I'll say it and say less and get to the content. Some people don't, you're not made to be the shield. But when it comes down to being the sword, man, we know all about folks who double cross and the backstab and all of those type of militarized analogies. But yeah, people who like you won't know where the swords are coming from. Are you fighting the folks in your own foxhole now? You're trying hard not to. Like you can be raised with people and you don't want to put them on blast, but they could switch up. Man, that's what happens when you go from a personal and private intimate space, i.e. Facebook before it became metaverse or Meta, And then you bring that into a space of open dialogue with people's cameras on, and you start to see people because they start to expect things that should be protected, like people's personal and private information, including medical information. And now, being a woman, I'm not the woman. I thought that was a woman's conversation. From a man, I thought we were, see, there I go venting again. And it's already been 5 minutes. So let me go on and get back into it. Salute, like I said, salute. And let's get into the actual information. People hate when people do that. And so here we go. Shirley. Oh, Shirley. It's Sunday morning, man. And oh, Shirley. It's going to be about the high notes today. And as folks were transitioning from the church, we have to respect that as an institution, that it was the institution that it was. And its effectiveness, well, if you think that it was anything more than indoctrination, then I don't know what else to say. But its effectiveness of bringing people together is what it was always intended to be, forsake not the congregation. Today is Sunday, and I know that we have to be a bit more respectful and courteous of those people who aren't where we are in our journey, either intellectually, spiritually, emotionally. They haven't experienced firsthand all of those different energies, based systems of what do you do when you have a positive energy that you want to share and it's humane, versus what do you do in conflict where there is a negative energy and you don't want to be receptive of that energy? How do you cut that bitch off, is how hip hop would say it. And then we would even have to analyze hip hop and say, well, why when they say bitch is it only referring to a woman? They've genderized that term. When women have the conversation, woman to woman, I understand that I'm supposed to shut the hell up, and they shouldn't have to block me before I learn to shut the hell up. And if they block me, I don't then have the right to cry, oh, they blocked me. You take it like, man, you was in their space, bro. What the fuck do you think they was in their own space? And then when they taught each other to be bold and courageous. See, it's 7:45, and I just got a new piece of strength that came in. Somebody who knows, oh, Shirley. Oh, Shirley. Yeah, we wanted to do karaoke. We wanted to bring positive energy, but on the same time, continue to create awareness around the topics that weren't being discussed. When white media only goes into the labeling or the criminalization, when they're using the destruction of black bodies to be something that they monetize, that conversation was falling short of its intellectual property. And those intellectual properties had to be galvanized by folks who knew what they were doing back then. And so, yeah, it was good when the church was able to do their thing and socially keep families connected. They could invite communities from far and wide, 20 miles, all to the same church, to the point where it was so, oh, Charlie, so many churches on the corner. It was like, man, what is the purpose of having all of these churches here? Now the churches are now divisive. You got this church that says this and this and this. Whatever happened to standing on principles? And so if you're going to be in a space where there are thousands of black women who have finally found their voice in their space, and black men think that they can run up the numbers, 100,000 views for 8 minutes of bashing black women. And now they got it down to the art of an algorithm. Yeah, at 916, which is my zip code, our old zip code. Yeah. I gotta represent, man, because they'd rather laugh at, the tales from the crypt, and they don't want the information. But we know that these storylines deal with comics and white comics, and they want the treasure chest or the treasure troll at the end of it without the battle. And while they make their waves of connecting each other as black men in their manosphere spaces, I still think that the principle of protection still applies. And my integrity is non-negotiable, even if it is a good homeboy from way back in the day. And so I know y'all love it, but I got to get to the actual church is finna start. So let's go to church. So when I share my screen, what I want to share on my screen is some of the work that was put in. But let me check one more time, because I know it happens, and y'all will be telling me in the chat, hey, you're not sharing your screen. If you're going to share your screen, share your screen. So I'm going to make sure I do it, because y'all know me. Once it gets into the actual content, I'm going to be into the mode. And I didn't put in the work. Like I had to actually learn them, observe was one thing, following what they were doing and how they were using omni-channel social media, Facebook, Instagram, and creating thumbnails and getting the content and streamlining the topic and then talking about one thing and then doing all that it took to make this a successful transition into freedom of speech, only for that woman to have her rights taken. And so I think I was one of the early people who said, hey, they got a new one who put on a new hat to join the manosphere. And they're in their transition as well from the conscious community. You might want to look out for this dude because he is somebody who seemed like he wasn't dumb, that has a strategy and wants to deploy some tactics. But at the end of the day, what we're going to observe with this content is the same Black male worship or messianism position, where you can monetize the destruction of Black women and you can equate their fighting back to Black feminism and what's wrong with the world when the numbers show otherwise. GDP per income or per capita, which is person income based off like 1,000, but that's the best way of starting to break down what this collective looks like. What happened since the 70s and the 80s and the 90s, once Black women found access to education and such, the welfare state, as they call it, shows otherwise to what these fake conservative, fake smart people think that what they're talking about makes sense. And they want to question Thomas Sowell. I question Thomas Sowell on macroeconomics, but I will also now question Thomas Sowell on cowardism, knowing what I know. And y'all will see most of that play out with this stream. And it has its own value. You won't hear me doing too much more talking. But let's get into this content. You see what's on the screen. We wasn't playing no games, and it took a little minute. He has Assata Shakur on the screen. He has Marcus Garvey in the Black background. He has some books face down while others are face up. Race, manhood, and power is something to which he's monetizing. Stickers and such. The shield of Africa or Zulu type shield, as it looks, the spears that are in between knowledge, and then the crossed rifles, whereas I'm still on swords, because I believe if we haven't learned to be able to defend our Black women's on being ashamed of oneself. Man, let me make sure, man, because right now it's giving me, yeah. Right now it's giving me the end conclusion on what we finna talk about. But no, I put in way too much work for us to jump to the end conclusion of all of this work. And y'all see it's about a good hour, so rock with me. And this Sunday morning, I made my damnedest effort to make sure I included segments and segment changes that would make this worth your while. Now, there might be a little bit of an echo, but you're going to have to deal with it because we ain't all the way there yet. These are the tools. All right, that matches my voice a little bit. It's going to get a little loud. Yeah. Africa! Here we come, Africa! Oh, no, never mind. They're going to Brazil. But that's kind of like Africa.
This is an essay.
That's an essay. Yeah, I'm going to show you. Because they think this is just a game. This is just the introduction. Oh, we bringing together skills and stuff? That's how we doing it? Let me make sure. One more time. Well, one more time, because I noticed that things be happening every once in a while. Let me check. Gaming and Brother Moses lecture. Yes, please. That's what I'm talking about. They said we play too much. I said they play too much. And they making it gaming, and they're giving us all the tools and resources to make it about gaming. So if gaming is what we got to do to get the real information out, we finna use gaming, all type of resources and avatars, but we got work to do, and I ain't fucking playing with these dudes. But I'm seeing in the chat that we here. We here. I'm seeing we here. We 100 with it. So y'all see the screen and everything. Let me make sure that I'm on there because they say if you can't see it, no, I got to take me off because I put too much work into this slide presentation for me not to be there. Yeah, because this is where we can go. But before we can get here, remember, even George Macon ain't even in on the conversation yet. Not at this point. Not right now. All right. And now that I know everything is a go, let's get back on into it. Premise round. We still stand on principles in the B1 network, and censorship is not going to stop that. The threat of censorship won't stop it. Candace Owens, at the hearing on confronting white supremacy, see, I was looking at loans and investment capital, disaster assistance, but yeah, you can see that's 4/12/2020 when we were having the conversation on an international platform about COVID. That same person who got banned, and now they got all them grants and loans? Yeah, full screen for these fools. Shut your mouth. Roly-Poly Martin represents the left. But let me calm on down before I be hoarse, because what I've learned is that mindfulness starts with breathing. It's recentering ourselves around our own energy. Message. And so I invite you to breathe with me. Yeah. I don't know where your mind went, but allow yourself to go wherever you go.
How do we thank you? How do we even begin to thank you for all that you have sacrificed to defend the country we love and the place we call home? You have chosen to put the nation before yourself. You inspire us. Now let us inspire you. Your national parks are places of recreation, connection, healing, and remembrance. Thank you for your service.
Your national parks are not for Pan-Africanists. Take your ass over there to London with that diaspora shit. That's the difference between Black First and Garveyites. But let me give you another example from another American veteran. Russia, Nova, Tank. They be like, well, what would they do if they was giving all them acres? My nigga Taz, What would they do if it was a land-based claim, like distribution? What would you do to conservation easement? What would you even do if you had 160 acres? How would you even ease the conservation of the land? But you would conserve it in perpetuity, right? Yeah. You're going to take care of it, right? Yeah. Oh, nah, but niggas wouldn't know what to do with reparations claims if it had land attached and, oh, we're supposed to be in a landlocked environment. Man, if you don't tell these people to cut it out, I don't know who they think they talking to. But we not them, and we ain't going. We just we have a different perspective about things that has to be shown rather than told. Because this is light work.
I got bad bitches trying to get by. Don't chill for a nigga get violent. I got bad bitches in me coming wild. Hey, I see a motherfucker smiling. 20,000 damn bitches on the island. 20,000 dead bitches on private.
Yeah.
They like to geek, drink a whole bottle of liquor repeat. She took a look, chill out. Now she said 3D. I go in the jungle and they got the coat. I bet I come out with me. I bet
Woo.
this for the fam.
They hating on Jesus, ain't they? Watch it. Look at that. Yeah, you wouldn't believe it. Flying on they dog ass. Somebody had to go do that, though. Somebody had to defy odds, right? Did they need a Sports Center soul in order to show these type of clips and to make these type of clips what's important?
Yeah,
it's going to get real loud. Let me turn y'all down a little bit because, yeah, it's going to get real loud. My soul into this one. Look at this shit. Look at this shit. Look at this shit. Look at this shit. Yeah, you can't make this shit up if you paid for it. The Crisis was a form of 19th and 20th century media? 19th and 20th century media. Facts. Why is it 19th and 20th century media? Because W.E.B. Du Bois, one of these mulatto or tragic mulattoes, if you ask me, who experienced his I need to get the hell up out of this situation moment through his grandfather's letter. When his grandfather exposed to him Alexander Du Bois, born in the Bahamas, son of a doctor, well-known Du Bois family of where? New York. Nigga, what the fuck is y'all talking about? On being ashamed of blackness, one of them New York Negroes who went down south and saw how Negroes was living and found a letter from his grandfather that said, oh, but we were actually born in Jamaica. Oh, yeah. Because that's what that music sounds like once you get to the 20th century. Let's talk big money then. Who the fuck would bet $1 billion and then win $35 billion? Now, I can show y'all how to convert coins into dollars for those people who do like those little coins and things on Facebook. But of course, Facebook would then, or Meta, would now fire so many people after their mobile wallet was no longer necessary. Why do you need a mobile wallet if people are going to sign up for games and give you money free? Gambling. And people would gamble using these digital apps, but then have a problem with Migos. But y'all don't fucking hear me. Let Mike Epps tell you if you missed that damn coffin being drugged through the streets by 50 Cent. Not by 50 Cent, but yeah, let's drag these coffins. Let's make this shit funny for these dumbass niggas who be doing dumbass shit and saying dumbass shit and thinking that shit was supposed to work. But to them, they had the whole world on their motherfucking shoulder. Nah, nigga, that's a busted ass struggle couch. And I know you might need to get it up the street.
It's happening now.
This is Bloodline right here. Tell these niggas to stop fucking playing with me.
The longevity of this whole thing. So.
There's a difference. If I start showing you the difference between the single argument and the married argument, even amongst those in my own family, we would start to go into a different space. But animal instincts was a breath of fresh air from all the bullshit that I used to see online. And so here's mine as we see the real Tarzan, E40 on the original audio, if people don't know what the hell we talking about. And they're like, well, how does all of that make sense? Oh, you on my back? Get your ass out of here, man. What? Oh, you think you strong, huh? Look, I done showed him, but now I got to show you. You want to be on my back? Look, smell stupid ass. You're a dumbass, ain't you? Look at him. Oh, okay. What was that? The butt attack? He really tried to give the bear the butt attack. Look at him, slap him. If that bear wanted to look, even play fighting with a bear, you're done. 250,000. Animal instincts. You put your hand in the animal's mouth just playing. Look. Oh, you want to do attack from the back, huh? Bite his dumb ass.
Did the Dow just buy a $58 million house with a mortgage?
$58 million. They had a fucking cat that ate fucking cannabis. Man, let's get to the serious part of what be happening, man. Man, shout out to twins.
And we know that we know you, and you know that we know you. Don't talk to Kyrie by himself. He can go and look at the horror of the Holocaust. Why don't you come and look at the horror of what your parents have done to black people in America and throughout the world? Why don't you come and study and repent of your evil to us? Then maybe we can sit down and have a talk like civilized human beings. I'm saying to the ADL, sir, we know you.
Sir, we know you.
And we know that we know you, and you know that we know you. Don't talk to Kyrie by himself.
Let's go to church. See, now I got to give them the information about Woodstock since they want to make it about hip hop. Well, let's talk about Woodstock, you freedom loving, liberty loving, the beautiful liberation of free. You better dance, Shirley. Woodstock, 17th century praying towns, Puritan missionaries to who? The Native Americans established in their praying towns along that river. But it goes back to 1675 when King Philip's War broke out. And it was just some towns, not all, just some towns when they had the last of the Mohicans up in Massachusetts, Oxford, Massachusetts. Oh, but Woodstock began attracting industry after the War of 1812. Talk about it, because where was the War of 1812? I thought that was New Orleans. What's the connection between New Orleans and Connecticut? Hold on, man, because y'all don't think we talking about people, which is why we got to start to. Ah! Fire! Oh! Shut up, all in my bones. Hey, Shirley? That's when they be like, Shirley. Oh, yeah, Brooklyn and Brooklyn Heights and all of that shit. Yeah, when you start digging down into the family, here's what you start finding out about these, what they called Uncle Tom's or Uncle Tom's Cabin. And they talk about Woodstock. And they talk about the hippies and freedom-loving society, but they don't want to drill down and see that's that New York connection you talking about, getting up north to Harlem. And Uncle Tom's Cabin and the family members of this abolitionist that you were signing yourself with. Because we know that you know. Time zones, zip codes, area codes. Now, they don't want to deal with that. Queens or Brooklyn or Harlem. Boston, Massachusetts. The congregation became a close friend of who? Look at him. Look on the right of your screen. Watch this. Watch this Mark Twain shit. My bad. Talk to that pimp. Talk to that pimp, Shirley. They said we got dignitaries in our church. They going out to John's house, huh? Come on with me now. Woo! Happy Sunday. Found that man John out there plowing. They said we going to John's house, nigga. Yeah, we want to find out about some of these adventures they was talking about. Yeah, they said they modeled it after some nigga named Uncle Tom, huh? We want to find out how the fuck did they get to Mississippi River or New Orleans? What the hell does this got to do with New Orleans? The Mississippi River. Oh. See that I missed that part right there when I first heard it. That would make you shout right there. The man John looked at his mule, like, nigga, look at the mule. Nigga, so that might go over somebody's head, but they said shouting John or dancing John looked at his mule. Like, God damn it, mule. Shouting John, dancing John, who was kicked out the church because they said we got dignitaries here and we don't conduct ourselves like that. But John said, I got something to shout about. They went out to John's house and said, now we got to talk to John. You better preach, Shirley. See, this is the message that they didn't want Shirley. They went and found Uncle Tom cabin. They went and found that whole family, and that was personal identifiable information. When you found out that their dependents still own, oh man, if y'all don't leave me the fuck alone. I know why you're here. You came out here. What did John tell them motherfuckers when they tried to run up on John at his place? The castle doctrine. What they... Hannibal, Missouri. Man, what you need, a map? You need the actual house? You need the distance? You need the grid coordinates? You need to find out how it's still relevant today. St. Louis, second largest city? Yeah, nah, man, you need to walk this journey with your boy. You need to actually see it. And even if they actually saw it, they wouldn't understand it. And so let me just break it down as if I'm going to assume that they could understand the relationship and how they got to that Mississippi River and what the hell that got to do with the War of 1812 and Native Americans and Indians and Cherokee and what the fuck that got to do with 1862 and the rights of humans. And now it's not even about blackness, it's about gender, but they would be mad at a woman for saying, stop calling me that, I'm a black woman, when they're the motherfuckers arguing about trans. Oh, so if they can't do transatlantic slave trade, then maybe we can advance this conversation and talk about the Trans-Pacific Railroad then. Because I know they ain't ready for a conversation about trans anything or looking across the aisle. They think they have some type of political genius and shit. They'll sell you a trip to Africa for $4,000 to people who could just take one of these trains and see for themselves that niggas start getting real thin out here once they had to move within blackness. And those who chose not to assimilate, well, they had a journey.
They're trying to destroy Herschel to deter young men and women of color from being Republicans. If they destroy Herschel, it will deter people of color from wanting to be a conservative Republican because you just have your life ruined. We cannot let that happen. We need to have his back. If Herschel wins, he's going to inspire people all over Georgia of color to become Republicans, and I say all over the United States. Herschel Walker is a nightmare for liberals. He's an African-American conservative. They have belittled him. They have treated him like crap. His family. Stand by Herschel tonight. If you can give. If you know somebody that can give, ask them to do it. TeamHerschel.com. The conservative movement for people of color is on the ballot in Georgia. We must help people like Herschel for the benefit of our country and the future of conservatism. TeamHerschel.com, please.
Personally now, when you're seeing the millions and millions of dollars in revenue happening.
I feel like the weed is better than medication. They used to try to put me on medication a lot.
This is how we revolt now, huh? With media.
I started smoking weed. Around like
We're going to scapegoat hip hop to hold black men accountable, while at the same time saying, well, it was the other people who monetized it. And so today we're going to start to monetize for ourselves. But in order to monetize it, we have to abide by their community standards and guidelines. But there was a group of people who said, man, fuck their community standards and guidelines. They ain't coming across this river. And I don't give a fuck if their train is a lucrative investment opportunity. But they wouldn't know that. They wouldn't know that they had to get that train from Chicago, but in order to get that train to Chicago, that's Springfield, Illinois. And in order to get to Springfield in 1862, well, what happened in the 1830s with that fucking candidate who had to arm all of these people? He wasn't just arming the black people in the South. What happened in 1812? Well, if you don't know what happened in 1812, then man, I can't help you. Who became president after the 1830s? Which of the presidents was author? Man, y'all leave me alone. The National Historic Preservation Act of 1966 requires the preservation of history and historic resources. Give myself a commercial break built in. Yeah, I got to get on my Rock Newman. I got to get on my Rock Newman with built-in commercials.
This is Jeffrey Golden here. Listen, guys, I don't know about you, but I'm just convinced that God is a God of justice.
Take them to church, Morehouse, brother. I can't do it by myself.
Of the oppressed, right? When Jesus came on the scene, what was his mission statement? Luke chapter 4, verse 18, the Spirit of the Lord is on me. He's anointed me to preach good news to the poor, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. So listen, family, in the United States of America, sadly, there is a legacy of economic oppression. There is a legacy that has all too often perpetuated disadvantage and poverty, and specifically for people based on race, based on class. And we've seen that, I believe, in no clearer area than the area of home ownership. If I had time, I would walk you guys through this terrible legacy of economic oppression through the government using its power, using its influence to pick winners and losers, right? And so now 50, 60, 70 years later, after the government starts the FHA, when for the first 20, 30 years, black folk couldn't even hardly get those government insured mortgages, right? All these years later, you see a black home ownership rate, which is like 40% versus a white home ownership rate, which is around 70%, right? And there's so many justice issues, but I believe that home ownership and land ownership has to be one of the greatest justice issues of our time. Owning a home is one of the biggest drivers of generational wealth. So much more we could say, but this is what I'm going to say, y'all. I got some good news for you. The good news is there's a new organization called Ready Life US, y'all. And Ready Life is black founded, They are Black ran, and they are all about developing new avenues, new opportunities for home ownership that has previously been unavailable based on the current system, the current banking system in the United States. So listen, I want you guys to hear all about Ready Life. This is not a paid endorsement, y'all. I believe in the mission of this organization, founded by Ashley Bell. Guess what, y'all? Dr. Bernice King, she's on the board for this group, y'all. They're doing some awesome things, and they're just launching. And I want you to get a chance to be a part of the first fruits of what they're doing. So go to ReadyLife.com. Be a part of the first 100,000 people who will have access to this new mortgage product that they're developing, so that you and your family, or those that you know, can begin to build generational wealth, so that ultimately we can see structures of oppression come down. I believe God is in it. What about you?
It's gonna get better. Whatever you're going through, I know He's gonna see you.
Take them to church, Cole. Mark Lamont Hill is another Philadelphia Negro. That's my hood on here, though. Big bro. My brother's keeper, still active. You don't need a black passport to go and see a waterfall. But if you got a passport, that's on you, man.
You wanna believe it. You wanna believe it. Oh, what grace and oh, what peace to Lord. You're here with me.
Man, if it wasn't about that high note right there, I don't know what it was about. So hopefully I did a good job sourcing the original content, folks. As you see, Butler Rottweiler Kennels, or Butler Kennels Rottweilers, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube.
Prominent
but let's get into
alumni Moses Jenkins, who defends the right of Morehouse College to administrate such things. Like she deserves the same rights to be a man, feels like she deserves the same rights. The same way a woman who wants to be a man feels like she deserves the same rights. The same way a woman who wants to be a man feels like she deserves the same rights. The same way a woman who wants to be a man feels like she deserves the same rights as a man does, even on all male campus. But it's a decision to allow transgender students to come into the population. Also want to ask you, how do you feel about reparations?
I've seen a lot of dogs get authorized in their backs, pulling it, hurting it.
You might not even know where I'm going with this, but allow me to talk to you about this scenario. If you are a person
See this little thing here.
who believes that Morehouse College, what they're doing is right in terms of the way of the world, African Americans are homophobic, and we should do away with this. They feel that they are a man or a woman, and they should be allowed to go to Morehouse College or now Spelman. Then what I want to ask you is this. Who deserves reparations?
I'd have cut
Of
that
course,
nigga right
this
there
person's
and
gonna
answer
say
the question.
Black people deserve reparations. Look what the nigga's gonna tell you. Black people deserves reparations. Hashtag ADOS deserves reparations. But at the same time, for those who support the decision that transgender, I am a woman, I feel like a man, I should be allowed in the Morehouse. Then what I'm going to ask you then is, what can you say to the white person, to the Asian person, who says, I feel like I'm black. And therefore, I deserve reparations and I want to change my race.
Motherfuckers be thinking they got a good one. I'd be like, man, shut your
Now,
goofy ass up.
Imagine this Pandora's box.
It's not a Pandora's box.
That's coming down the pike. And this is why I believe now that hashtag ADOS, the reparations arguments, I believe we are not going anywhere now.
Of course you did 3 years ago.
The hashtag ADOS to get reparations is going to vehemently disagree with the fact that, oh, but that white person was born a white person. They can't pretend to be black. So in other words, they're never going to get it because they got to be born black first.
I know they be thinking they be having body
sure about that,
bags.
brother? Because you're the same person that's going to defend somebody who was born a man. And now they feel like they are a woman, which is exactly equivalent, not similar, equivalent to a person who says, I believe.
I have to stop it right here. Butler Kennels Rottweilers, established in 2005 by Tony Butler, his love of dogs and the Rottweiler breed led him to breed quality Rottweilers. Butler Kennels Rottweilers has several Rottweilers with European backgrounds and champion bloodlines. Other services offered by Butler Kennels Rottweilers include dog training, overseas dog imports, and raw and dry dog food packages. I'll let him keep going.
Believe that I am black. My soul is black. I feel like I'm supposed to be black, not Asian, not white, not Russian. I want to change my race because I feel like it.
All right. So,
and not only do I feel like I'm black, I feel like my ancestors were black. Although if they were not, I also.
That one. We at Butler Kennels Rottweilers have been providing services for over 14 years. I'm a Army combat veteran that created my business based on my morals and by providing outstanding quality puppies to have a new home. Have always been sold out before birth. And that's due to, that's credited to his service, punctuality, friendliness, and the health of the dogs. And the health is tested to ensure that you are given the best at Butler Kennels Rottweilers, where the goal is not only for the best puppy, but to make you a part of the family, to make sure you have the best puppy, but to also make you a part of the family.
Oh,
deserve to see. Do you feed them once or twice a day? Depends on the day. Sometimes more than that. Food tank.
And rather than using a Pan-Africanist dude who's talking about an essay from the grandfather who was Jamaican as some form of a, hey, I agree with Du Bois, but Du Bois, I don't even know where he was going with that letter, or this is an essay. I figured I'd give you an example of an African-American who was not waiting for the government to provide the handouts, but understands that American and the Black experience revolves around actual service, and that it was an actual fight, not just the training for the fight. And him being a combat veteran, he knew that he was entitled to the benefits that came with his service. And so by him leveraging his knowledge and his actual passion, he was able to open up his business, which is doing what he wanted to do and create a space where high quality puppies, a Black dog, could be bred and then provided to homes and make them a part of the Rottweiler or the Rottie family. And thus the community is expanding. They're always sold out. He's able to use quality testing through services in the public-private partnership. Things like pet care, vet care, these things get expensive. Questions about feeding them is because they know, there's people, Black men, who do know the value of being able to provide. And in this case, when it comes to the Rottweiler, it's a form of protection for the household that otherwise would have had to lead to the Second Amendment. But if there is any event where the compassion or the love was needed or missing in the home, and they could love a pet more than they could love a human being, then pets like the Rottweiler are a great option. And we see that in America, how much they love animals more than they love Black people. And this is just a particular breed of animal that can add that essence of love where it's missing. But if we want to conflate the conversation around who can receive love and who can give love, that's one thing. Reparations is an automated process for the distribution of compensation to individual claimants who have the right to put in an application. Those folks who want to leave can leave. In the reparations debate or public discourse, there were 12 white men who had been appointed the representatives in that congressional space where they legislate bills. But the omnibus bill supersedes all of that. The funding had already been enacted, and they were just looking for a system to optimize the distribution of payments. Asian businesses, which is a private, could be considered racist. But Asian business owners in Oregon posed the challenge and said it's racist if you just make it Black. 6 different legal challenges exist today with loan forgiveness. If you have to write Black loan forgiveness, then that's the issue with working with these pro-quacks. Being able to disseminate the information as a form of awareness to Black women who have a lot of student loan debt and could actually benefit from $20,000 worth of debt forgiveness, well, that's one thing. But when we see that the PPP, or the Small Business Forgiveness Loan, that 97% of it went to small businesses, and Black women are the emerging demographic into entrepreneurship, but that their average request for those loans, payroll protection, their average request on the value of the services they provide, even in their own entrepreneurial endeavors, were not $1 million requests, which is a pathology issue, that they would have considered themselves criminal for partnering with the federal government. But the average loan forgiveness was $100,000 damn near. That's forgiveness. And now they're in their second wave of distributions to the small agricultural sector. But we have to keep debating people who say, well, Black women betrayed us when they started accepting food stamps. Well, food stamps still falls under the USDA, dumb nuts. Reparations, being a land or resource-based argument, would fall under land, dumb nuts. South Carolina or North Carolina or Georgia, any of these places where you have a Black senator, man, but watch what they do. I tell you, when I put this together, I had to give myself just a little space to talk. And at this point, I had to shout out, like, what's the solution? Even if you build it into the conversation, they don't care. So I had to mute his dumb ass. And hopefully y'all understand that they wasn't saying shit no way. And who taught motherfucking O'Shea the benefit of the loop drill? And while he can have somebody who might be the Russian, Dima, coordinate his marketing strategy and get his thumbnails and campaigns and get his music video and directed and production together, he's the director. While he might have a Russian who's able to focus his business. Well, in America, at that time, they were looking to prevent Russian bots from targeting Black voters or Democrats. And they could pin it on a Hillary Clinton. Or on the other side of the argument, they can talk about wiretaps in wherever in his Marcialago or whatever that fucking word, Mar-a-Lago estates, his little island town or whatever the fuck that shit is. I don't fucking know. That's rich people shit. But I can show you that this was just a letter, but in this letter, it dealt with an 1856 Negro. And the 1856 Negro was also dealing with my great-great-granddad or my great-granddad came from Jamaica. What's wrong with these Pan-Africanist niggas is that they ran across the world benefiting from church. And now that they're the ones with the offering plate, they are reckless and irresponsible with the souls who join their congregation. And they do this double think and triple think as if it's not an exercise in white messianism. And no matter how many times we tell them that it links to the American Colonization Society or the American Baptist Convention, or we can just keep showing them this Freedmen Bureau and this talented 10th wasn't as effective as you thought it was once they assassinated the grand white Chicago politician. No, the Pan-Africanist says we just respect that Obama ain't black. He's African and Hawaiian at best. But if we show them the numbers of illiteracy in the black community, they don't think these are receipts. So I'll just put it on the screen. And normally I would shut up, but I had to mute him. He wasn't talking about shit. Please believe it. But the receipts are actually on the screen, not the letter that his granddad wrote in the 1850s. But it's talking about the real illiteracy rates when the talented 10th was their alternative. But 150,000 students was the number. And it'd go right over their heads that it wasn't until the Great Depression, kids were employed, getting 4 years of education, even through this talented 10th. Illiteracy was measured in, man, I'll show you the numbers. Do you want it in black and white or other? Or do you want it in the number of people who produce others? Through their genderizing education. 19th century or 18th? Because we ain't talking about the granddad no more when they start talking about Du Bois when he found the letter and published the letter in his media. But in today's debate, they think if they show you that tragic mulatto who posted a letter when they found out that their grandfather was born in Jamaica, y'all don't fucking hear me. Y'all playing Pan-African games, thinking that it's rooted in black first or American descendants of slavery, when it's not. But by that time, we were still dealing in numbers that were still atrocious of literacy. So I'll let Shirley pass the mic. Kelly Rowland with the walkthrough challenge. They don't want to see black women walk through. Tiana Taylor, toxic black male syndrome. Oh, you're worshiping. Oh, now they want to talk about the Themis of philanthropy. Now, Conservation Tillage Conference early registration deadline is February 24th, 2023 is the early registration deadline for those who believe in conservation of land and resources. For the rest of them who don't feel like it, well, let them keep apologizing. But there are others. There's other ways of looking at what's going on right now in America. And I'm going to let Shirley talk to him. I'm going to let Shirley talk to him like I got any control over Shirley. Shirley! Oh, Shirley. See, she ain't had time, but I got time.
He looked back at that old mule and said, since I can't shout in your church, since I can't dance in your church, hold the mule
Why did he say hold my mule? Watch this part. Watch how we hit him with the information, B1. Yeah, they ain't want Shirley to preach. They ain't want Shirley. They just wanted her to sing. She was going to tell him about that Dear John letter. Talk to me. Talk to me, vet. Dear John. There's a premiere that's finna kick off. Black Dads Matter, man. IDOS. The Indian descendants of slavery. Y'all better talk about it. Floyd Mayweather had another fight.
I want everybody now. We're going to go back home and sing it like we used to long time. I'm going to praise the Lord while I have a chance. You know, we didn't have a lot of music. I'm going to praise the Lord while I have a chance. I like that. Come on. Praise him in the morning. Praise him in the morning. Praise him all day long. Come on, help me. I feel like praise. If you don't want to go, don't hinder me.
Something happened, man. Watch what happened. How did Cherokee County end up in Oklahoma? How did Cherokee County end up in Oklahoma, man? If y'all don't freaking stop playing games with me, Oklahoma City and Kevin Samuels. When Cherokee County originated right there in North Carolina, how the fuck did it end up in Oklahoma? They can talk about the, man, y'all don't leave me alone. Oh, they want to talk about resources. They want to talk about this, what he ran to Harlem for. Oh, I need facts on the screen when I talk.
But I declare to you that I know he's able. Does anybody know he's able? He's able to keep that you committed unto him. I'll get that day. Now let me hear you say, Jesus. Jesus.
I need facts on the screen.
Jesus. Nobody but Jesus. Nobody but Jesus. Let me hear you call him. Let me hear you call him. Jesus. Jesus.
High School Zion.
Mary's baby.
Oh, Mary's baby. Come on now. This is an argument that goes above their heads when they talk about the Democratic Party. Because it was supposed to have caused hyperinflation partnering with the federal government. Not the federal government, excuse me, the Federal Reserve. Because the banks were the ones that were struggling, that needed reparation. They needed a handout. All that money they talking about. Oh, why ain't cause hyperinflation? Reparations was supposed to cause Oh, everybody gets you get reparations. You get reparations. You get reparations. The economic slump began when the U.S. housing market went from boom to bust, and large amounts of mortgage-backed securities and derivatives lost significant value. But I thought black folks wasn't getting the good houses. We was on Section 8, remember? the balance of trade is a foreign concept because exports are added to the value and imports are subtracted. You Pan-African macroeconomic, I want to go to God, Tory Kwame type motherfuckers. W.E.B. Du Bois. Do like Gordy and go die in the diaspora and stop fucking with black dollars. Because this is what the real information looks like. This is what happened after they started investing in. Look at this shit. Look at these numbers. These are the real numbers, but you want to go back to the 1930s, you bitch ass nigga, you. You don't want to be the owner of the land. Look at the dance. Look at the dance move. Y'all see? That's the move right there. That's what got them. That move right there with the shoulders. Yeah, that's what got them. That's why they left the church. They start singing about that black man.
Black men of no color, they're making the most money possible for them and for organizations slavery type of work. Black men are different. Supplying those men of no color remain emotionally starved for their intimate relationship
was strictly a business decision. The benefits of what whites called Negro vice included creating jobs for many blacks of all ages, for sex workers, madams, bartenders, housemaids, cooks, musicians, children as runners, errand boys, bellhops, and solicitors, and men as concierges, those assisting with men of no color in having sex with black women. And this is why I want y'all to understand that that mentality is still here. This was in the 1920s. This was in the 1920s. Okay, it started in the 1920s. So I lost my part. Y'all, if I don't look at the chat box, it's because if I do, it's gonna throw off my train of thought, which it literally just did. But it says, this is an example of the make-do cleverness of the ex-slaves with what was available. Smart blacks use these jobs to reach more respectable careers.
Get back on assignment, my nigga. What is it that we hear? The honey-do list.
That when something is glamorizing the exploitation of black women, please do understand that some of it is.
Man, let these elder women go play bingo, man.
A black man or a black male work for these women, because black men weren't pimping black women and then going to respectable careers. And like I said, that mentality is still in there. Because what do they say when they hear about the Goldman Sachs or the $850 that's coming from black women, but they think it's coming from men of no color? What they'll say is that, oh, why don't they give the money to or they'll say, why don't they give the money to black men? Or black men need to take the money from black women because he is the one who's supposed to have it. How many of y'all heard black men talking about when black women get stimulus checks, how black men need to boss up on them and take their stimulus checks because the money should be for them? They still have this mentality where they want to exploit you and use you for profit. And what I'm saying is that this is something that black women allow. This is what black women allow out of black male worship. It says, black male entrepreneurs in dire need of a job seize the opportunity to organize and manage these women's lives in a physical and psychological sense. This was the birth of the black pimp. Pimping provided a large amount of money very quickly and relatively easy, especially by including white females. But we know that most black men didn't have a lot of white females in there. So this was primarily black women that they were doing.
So I'm trying to feel the energy.
Was an immediate means of acquiring power, the type of power black Americans never experienced. Pimping was an ego trip, the gaining of dominance over black females, a reversal of what the slave owners had set up, and especially over white females, because this was the white man's prized possession. I told y'all, there's nothing that black men are gonna do that doesn't involve trying to get an emotional reaction out of men of no color. They don't care. All they're gonna do is do whatever they want to do. Beat you, toe tag you, whatever you want to say. You're not. Black men keep trying to get these reactions out of men of no color, and then when they get the wrong reaction, they want to cry. But let's continue. Pimping was the means to satisfy the pimp's burning desire to psychologically be freed
That
from the
started getting
various
whacked.
forms of enslavement controls applied to him by men of no color. I want y'all to notice how Black men's solution is never directly confronting men of no color. It's always using a woman to get at men. I want y'all to understand that, because this is typically what they already do. The objective was to philosophically aspire to be godlike in the sense that the white man considered himself,
It went to the
and then to
bonus.
ultimately be the
They got
god
their
of
little
the white
bonus
male
inside of the
middle
free
god.
spins, and that's how it started turning up. Since they want us to
This
believe that it was
written
the
by
gambling
a one
institution
Joseph
that
A.
could have
Daly
saved that man
II,
life.
who is a medical doctor. Okay. And as you see, Black men were exploiting Black women as a means of feeling like they're better than men of no color. They want to be dominant. They want to elevate themselves to a god. Don't y'all already call them kings without kingdoms?
1.5.
Don't y'all already run around saying the Black man is the god? We can't live without Black men. Oh, you've already elevated him to the level of a god. He does not feel like he is a god unless he is on the level of men of no color. They don't want liberation.
Damn, it went
They
back to the
don't want
bonus.
freedom.
Bigger than the
They
last
don't
time.
want a separate
When she said that
society
shit.
where they can thrive with Black women and children. No, they want to try to one up men of no color. They've been doing it. We're going to read it again. The objective was to philosophically aspire to be godlike in the sense that men of no color consider himself, and then to ultimately be the god of the white male little gods, and that's in quotations.
Right.
But what Black men are failing to realize is that when men of no color wanted to elevate themselves to a godlike status, they didn't go and conquer women. They didn't exploit women. They didn't use women against other men. They dominated the most physically strongest, most muscle bound, because you got the muscle bound. Men of no color are a different breed than Black men. It just is what it is. It is what it is. It is what it is. It just is what it is. Men of no color are a different breed than Black men are. Because when they wanted dominance, before they did anything to a woman, they went and dominated the most physically strongest man on the face of the planet. That is Black men. You have more muscle mass, you are taller, you are bigger, you have more testosterone. So when men of no color knew what they needed to do, they know that you live in a male-dominated society. So therefore, in order to dominate, I need to go find, it's just like buck breaking. I need to go find the biggest, strongest male, dominate him, then I can be the biggest, strongest man in society.
Well, first of all, he's a nightmare to the children that he has abandoned and done nothing for. He's a nightmare to his own son, who came out and said he lies all the time and shouldn't be in office. He's a nightmare. But look, if you are a young Black person who want to be a conservative, there's a guy named Tim Scott I would direct you to if you want somebody in the Senate who you can look up to. The idea that, again, everything has to be at the extreme. If you don't want someone with his lack of qualifications and bad personal character to be in the Senate, you now
see. Now, while I won't address O'Shea Duke Jackson with that dumbass shit directly like that, this dude is weird. Lindsey Graham would be the guy who sits Tim Scott on his lap. And the reason Tim Scott is ineffective as a good representation of Black male leadership in the Senate is because he is a lapdog. And he's voted consistently when they were looking to impeach Donald Trump. He supported him. I don't know one way or the other if you think that that's code or not. But when it comes down to his track record of what he actually does produce for his state, That's where I draw the line on making him a good representation of black male leadership politically. But carry on.
Hate all conservatives and don't want any black people to be conservative. That's not true. All of us got conservative black people in our families. What are you talking about?
Yes, we do.
What are you talking
Including
about?
radical black conservatives who are part of our family.
Samuel L. Jackson, many people to name a few, right? A lot of people. Jamal Harrison Bryant.
People like him always talk about race baiting, identity politics. This is race baiting. This is race baiting in the worst form to say, because someone doesn't like, if you're black and you don't like this is the worst thing. So if you believe like, liberals or the people who are not MAGA, they're always race baiting, or they believe in identity politics, that's exactly what he's doing. The hypocrisy, off the charts there. And then, oh my gosh, I thought he was going to start crying like a Southern preacher.
Look what he said.
Tell people just because you're black and you don't.
This nigga said he thought he was going to start crying to the dude who has one of the most infamous tears.
So, and here's the reality. If the Republican Party
being shed
continues to make
in
a
media.
basic case around fiscal conservatism, that sort of stuff, they'll pick up some black votes.
We almost out of here.
Tell people just because you're.
It's like a televangelist.
People like him always talk about race baiting, identity politics. This is race baiting. This is race baiting in the worst form to say, because some
people like Lindsey Graham, who were in South Carolina, the South, nigga, out of all places, use race baiting. And that's your comeback, Mr. South Africa, the ally of the allies. Okay.
Someone doesn't like, if you're black and you don't like this is the worst thing. So if you believe like, liberals or the people who are not MAGA, they're always race baiting, or they believe in identity politics, that's exactly what he's doing. The hypocrisy, off the charts there. And then, oh my gosh, I thought he was going to start crying like a Southern preacher.
You're like a televangelist.
Tell people just because you're black and you don't support Herschel Walker, that is the worst, I believe, form of racism.
I think so. And here's the reality. If the Republican Party continues to make its basic case around fiscal conservatism, that sort of stuff, they'll pick up some black votes.
Fiscal conservatism. Well, B1 Brother Moses just debunked that. And so here's what you got left.
I have two African-American female cousins.
Two African-American female cousins. This is what needed to be said during the midterms. But I don't digress. And they'll probably take this down because I used everybody's, which means we will not know what part of this they had the most problem with. They might give me a community strike because I am using other people's property. But once again, we're talking about people who are taking away the right of women to even decide on whether or not they can give birth. And now let that sink in.
One of them is named Karsha Kirkendall. She said, to tell the world who are MAGA, Trump, conservative, and proud of it. And I love them, and they love me. The idea that we need someone like Lindsey Graham to explain to us how to relate to different political positions in our own community is just ridiculous. It's almost embarrassing. And if you're going to be that...
When they say community, this is all I think. Like, it popped up on the bottom. I was like, man, what the fuck are you talking about? If you're not assimilated into an integrated society, then you're still assimilated into the rural community. You may have lower internet connectivity, but you're still a part of America. When you adopt the ideology of somebody who wants to leave but hasn't left yet, and it's a foreign ideology for the extraction of resources, man, come on, man. These people be doing triple double talks while at the same time saying black women shouldn't have access to them merely because they're women. Man, I just got to let you hear it in all of their own words, and we'll let them decide who owns the right to censor me for saying it.
Evangelical in your belief about somebody?
because they all trying to evangelize. And when it comes down to it, somebody at the end of the day is going to be able to tell me that letting them say it in their own words, from Jeffrey Golden, my Morehouse brother, who was singing about it, but also has an endorsement of a Black woman who started a mortgage-backed company where they help 100,000 folks get mortgages, is Black. The Black-owned kennel operator in Texas with Rottweilers, which is Black. Land, in a sense of, for veterans, we have access to all of these national sites. But for us, it means more because it's the preservation. Thus, conservation, not conversation, but the other one, the real one that talks about conservation easements or resources like water, actually, or in the case where their great macroeconomics guy, Thomas Sowell, he argues that we should be back in the 30s. But when I show you our levels of GDP today versus the 30s, I think that it debunks the argument. They say the welfare state is a failed experience. I say if you look at the welfare state, everybody was able to benefit from socialism, that all of these people love socialism when it comes to the police need to be protected. They've made that and agriculture a part of the omnibus bill. Senate bills like HR 300 from Cory Booker, those are just conversations being legislated or written down. But the Omnibus Act is law. Let these other people talk about the gender and dating games. But when it comes to Supreme Court justice rulings, Loving v. Virginia is not our conversation. They look at it from the wrong lens. It's actually a case about exile and whether the state can have an example for why they want to base exile on who you procreate with. Now read it again. And then we look at the Moynihan report. No matter how many times we read it, it was still just another tool for streamlining a study, or we need to conduct a study to assess the impact of. But it's just another media like The Crisis or The Independent or the Chicago Defender. It's just another media. The UNIA, when they had their convention, was a non-official, unrecognized, not government-sanctioned convention. But the Democratic Convention is a recognized convention, just like when they say separation of church and state. The National Baptist Convention is a recognized convention, but they typically try to stay away from politics. Jeffrey Golden, who was on that media show, what was it, like So You Think You Can Sing or America's Got Talent, and actually won it, is my Morehouse brother, who uses his platform not to say I'm endorsing it, but then to endorse it, endorse the people, and endorse the principle of Black folks getting access to mortgage-backed securities. If that's not what you know it as, I don't know what else to tell you. Mortgage-backed securities are a good thing. If you move from renting and you're in your transition into home ownership, you start understanding the loan process and why being locked out of the loan process based off of your name matters. Discrimination based off what you named your business now and your business audience because you put the word Black in it or because your network is Black-centric forces many small Blacks, minority-owned businesses to operate with a protected status that they request via application through the SBA. They try to get licensing to operate their business. And then oftentimes they find themselves using government contracts because there is not just a protected status, but a benefit to being a recipient as a minority, a recipient of government contracts. Not just the USDA SNAP program, they'll feed your family. Not just Obamacare and taking care of the seniors. Not just your education through a federal Pell Grant. And not just through government subsidized loans, but there was also loans that people needed through Fannie and Freddie and Sally and Jesse, Raphael, Michelangelo, whatever they named those businesses. And so it's just ridiculous. Van Jones reacts to Graham's emotional plea on Fox by deferring to the black senator who spoke 6 times on a Senate floor about police brutality, crying. And Don Lemon talks about it from a lens of a Southern evangelical, as if they all don't fall underneath the very same Southern evangelical who has whole boulevards named after him. As if they all don't fall underneath the same protected status that had been arranged through Jimmy Carter and before Jimmy Carter. But that it's still the same bloodlines. The Black Lives Matter movement is a hijacking of BLM, the Bureau of Land Management. The resources that they received as a business or a minority operated business, an ally of an ally, but still just a business in all of its micro and macroeconomic lenses. But that same organization that gets so much slander and shit talk, so much coverage from the conservative right, is an economic argument when they started to invest in real estate, i.e. the Morrison or the real estate investment or REITs. But in an intellectual property space, and one that is still learning how to protect people's personal, private, and medical information, regardless of HIPAA or Privacy Act or Consumer Bureau of Protection, Better Business Bureau, which is another nonprofit or non-governmental organization. No, regardless of whatever those type of public-private partnerships, our rights and our principles are what are being questioned. And the B1 network is the one that has stood through all of it, regardless of who banned us or censored us. It didn't matter if they were on the J side or the LGBTQ or the P side. None of it matters. Our principles rock on. Where we can find some divergence is on, do you support that ally of an ally of an ally when this trans or intersectional conversation comes up? And in many cases, all we can do is be 100% clear, even though we're the ones who face being censored for saying it. As a heterosexual married Black man of 15 years with 2 children, the allies will take the link, and to me, I be thinking they're trolling for even finding my page. I don't know how. Out of all the algorithms they could have been connected to, my content would have been the content that they thought was for them. But if they want to bring their ass up here and get drilled, they can bring their ass up here and get drilled. Let me finish this on out. You see, we almost done. And I tried to make it make sense in their own words. Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina. Man, I had to get back to work on that bullshit, man. Like, man, I'm used to dealing with a whole lot more data than this. These niggas were
Texas. And anytime we match someone to a school, we get a fee that we use to keep free for people. Because boot camps already cost around $10,000 to $50,000, but cheaper than college. And we also use that money to create live audio inside the curriculum. We reinvest back into our community to give them more resources. We want to help 1 billion people in the next 10 years. People getting jobs, people getting enrolled in schools. That's validation. We'll always continue investing in our product, continue investing in our users, and expanding options for them.
What's wrong with this nigga's eyebrow?
More school options.
I know we're not supposed to do that. It's like the wig or the tooth, but goddamn, that eyebrow was fucked up. On Being Ashamed of Oneself, an essay on race pride by W.E.B. Du Bois. My argument would be pull a better receipt. The opposing argument is not the talented 10th, but it was Booker T. Washington, a Bookerite position. So pulling receipts as merch of somebody who said my grandfather in the this was in 1856. 70 years later, Marcus Garvey discovered that and found his way of humanism after he was locked up in Atlanta. But this is the revolt? Did he stutter? This is the revolt? 185 million, not Bitcoin, not bits of a coin, not something that you can buy on a game on the metaverse and you can pay into it but can't cash out if you do win. 1 billion coins, 35 billion coins, 100 billion coins. But no, invest 185 million and let them talk about it and see what they got to say about it. Black Flower Family. That's 54 minutes. That's my presentation. I was going to check in. I ain't even saved it yet. So I'm going to go on and save the damn thing. Look at all it. 6 minutes. 6 minutes. I had to play 6 minutes. I should have put 6 minutes on the end of it just because. A case study on the promotion of prostitution. Bullet bags. 4 seconds, man. Which ones do you want, man? I'm going to name this one. Which one was this? I know it was a plot twist. Where are we at? Plot twist like 21 now? Was this 22? I'm going to name it plot twist 22. That's where I'm not good at the managing part of this, because naming things what they need to be named and then putting that content into this form, well, it doesn't always work. But I'm B1 Brother Moses. Other content includes like the breathing exercises. That was important here. Also, I want to shout that out. Daryl Brooks and the Migos. You know what I'm saying? That was a big one. General Pershing, that's Signal Corps. When the Buffalo Soldiers, we don't get a lot of actual people who create visual edits now that we have all of this new technology. So hopefully me trying some of these editing tips that they taught me on YouTube how to use doesn't get me banned for actually using them on YouTube when they turn around and say, oh no, but then you disrespected the community policy by then using this. Man, it's all other people's real lives. This is reality. This ain't no fucking game. I shared from actually Shirley Caesars herself. I shared from the Morehouse brother himself. I shared from the person who went to Howard, which is the Morehouse versus, that's our classic. He's talking about ADOS. That's Yvette Carnell. She's Howard. I'm talking about Rock Newman. That's live from Howard University. And those are the people who are in Philadelphia. The picture of George Macon is Philadelphia. Omawale, Washington is Omawale, what's his fucking name? Africa, not Washington. It should have been Omawale, Philadelphia, but instead it's Omawale, Africa. Sha'Carri Richardson, when she said adios, what Nyla says must be true. Rude Imp, Confession on the Faith Factor, combo clips, Taz exclusive clips, Logic Sphere and Ramil Experience trolls. No, it wasn't trolls when they actually opened up their space to talk to Sosa. Niggas don't want to hear that though. When we told them that it was, man, y'all doing some weird shit. No, they triple dogged down on it and opened up their space, Logic Sphere and Ramil Experience, to have the conversation, and it was open, it was live streamed. They don't give a fuck. Sinful to P, 14-year-old, him having his conversation. Told you they opened up the P to mean more than that. He had to explain from his real life. Did he have to? No. Was niggas checking him and forcing him to actually speak on it? No. But that energy was real. So let these niggas keep talking about my teeth. The Scorpio energy is real. They don't understand the Daryl Brooks and the Migos. Daryl Brooks case, while he was saying jurisdiction and venue and having all of these conversations in America, and Black America laughed at him, the other side of the argument, they accepted PowerPoints as evidence. And while he was trying to object, and everything he kept objecting to was getting thrown out, she was saying, no, I decline, I decline, I decline. They used PowerPoints in the court and it was accepted. And you niggas laughed at that shit. And when they asked the Migos on their Drink Champ and he's talking to these folks, you know these youngsters don't know what the fuck they talking about. They asked him, death row or Bad Boys. He said Dero. And then he laughed a second and said, "You want to meet Suge?" No, he said, "Did you ever meet Suge?" He said, "No, he just likes Dero." Now, you might know Energy, but when Energy is real, these dudes be dumb. And then beyond that, when they're wrong, they're not the ones that actually apologize. When I'm wrong, I will say I'm wrong. And when shit hurts, I say shit hurts. I say ouch. I don't know no other way. Let me stop sharing the screen. They said the left is censoring the Skittles conversation. That's their own conversation. That's their conversation. And then they would turn around and be mad at Nyla Says. And I see there is no reason why the Radical Conservatives podcast or her show does not get. She is another one who has to actually go into her Patreon to say what she wants to say. To me, that's submitting. But we understand that this is their community, that they created the technology, they linked the technology and then made us all sign but then we all signed those waivers to join their community and to be independent publishers of our intellectual property. And while they can monetize our intellectual property, and they have the ability to help us monetize or to demonetize our intellectual property, they also have the ability to remove our First Amendment rights. And we're the ones saying, look, man, when it came to Black femicide, which side did I stand on? I didn't have to know who the people were. The numbers were going up. And on this argument, I still believe that our sister Cynthia G has the right to her own personal, private, and medical information, that her standing on that is bold, that is the actual representation of a woman king in its literal and its figurative sense of the word. And that her message, because it hits, it's not something that should be censored, nor the people who become the shield or the dog. And I'll talk about it from the lens of me even apologizing for calling a woman a bitch, whether or not that woman adopts or acts like it and all of that other shit. I don't know. I know those arguments, but they're not for me. For me, when shit hurt, I say, ouch. I had to rethink about that. Like, damn, come to think of it, they do love their dogs more than they love humans. And they would be willing to insure and fund kennels. But in the OBGYN space, if a woman was looking to give birth and she couldn't afford it, these same people would not want her to have access to health care. And if she needed a loan, well, she had always been dependent on her husband. So if he's the one who's advocating for abortion and his ultimatum is abortion or financial abortion, and they're willing to go to Brian Kemp, the governor, and Donald Trump, who are not respecters of women, But even those white people know they ain't fucking with that argument. That's an L. Stacey Abrams may lose an election, but they ain't gonna lose that in Georgia. I don't give a fuck what you say about the allies of Hollyweird, whether it's Hollyweird, California, or Hollyweird, Georgia. Hollyweird, Georgia is an extension of Hollyweird, California, because they gave them legislatively tax incentives to produce film. And thus we have a billionaire who was able to buy Fort McPherson, the place where they rallied against Black folks and started their murder campaign in America. One of the most heinous, scorched earth military strategies in the world happened right there in America. So allies of allies in America, that's Andrew Young and civil rights. People would never get to that conversation because they're still stuck in the 60s. 1966 Act, the National Prehistoric Preservation Act is what I go with. And as you see popping up on my screen, when it comes to the private partnerships I believe in, I still believe in stocks and bonds, not just mortgage-backed securities. But that's another one, which is another body bag. And they won't think that we're talking about solutions, though I done talked about all of these things in this one show as alternatives. And it didn't matter if it was a blue concept or a red concept. At the end of the day, for me, it was about more green. Black women having their own seat at the table was never enough, because even when they got to the table, they'd find themselves being the butt of jokes by people who were supposed to be allies for diverse talent at the corporate table. And when Black women learned how to say that's not funny, and they started teaching the allies how to be better allies, they turned on the Black woman and said, well, your overeducated ass should not be at the table if you don't like what happens in the locker room or at the water cooler. Because of the woman, whether it was about woman or transgender, before we even get to transgender, if the woman didn't have rights or shouldn't have been at the table, then it was again killing the argument for the Black man. And why the fuck did I get an education? It wasn't about people being gay. As a Black man, they can be gay and not be a fucking rapist. But when the P turns into pedophilia, and they know that that is their space, and they're not willing to stand on principles, don't at me, and definitely don't put it on my real name. Because what happens after he put it on my real name, he would say that he's not responsible for it 3 years later. Anything that happened 3 years after giving away my real name in the YouTube space, he would say he's not responsible, while hiding behind his business name or license name. And I don't even think that he licensed it. And while in the B1 space, they'll give me the two swords and say, now you understand a double cross. I would still respect that man's privacy, that even when I dox him, I respect his real name. And even when I doxed him, the problem is you won't find what you think you'll find. You'll find Moses has been about civil rights. You'll find Moses tried to take a hard line. And even at Morehouse, I said, man, that's their policy. What happened to Morehouse? Morehouse ended up getting locked down like all the other institutions. And for them, they had to move into a space of online education access. Why in the fuck should it matter if it's a boy or a girl who is 17 years old looking to enroll at Morehouse and get access to their teachers and their curriculum online? Why should it fucking matter if it's a boy or a girl at 17 years old? Why should it matter if their parent was Black or white when we know Morehouse already accepts South Africans? It wasn't my call, but their right as an institution to make that call was their right. And if you don't believe in the institution, that's one thing. But thinking that I'm not going to back my institution while we have a classic debate and we smack the hell out of Howard University in our classic debates, well, you got me fucked up. Now, your equivocation to the intersectionality of other people co-opting the reparations debate, I'll tell you again, is about DNA and bloodline. And I don't give a fuck what happens when you start trying to put down the criteria, whether or not it's 6 generations back. Because to get there, you would have to understand why a nigga like Omawale thinks that he can use W.E.B. Du Bois, who is a tragic mulatto, whose family married into the New York Weird Society, the Madam C.J. Walker Society, and his blood family married into them, and you think you could talk to me? Not about justice when Thurgood Marshall married an Asian woman. And his son then went on to become the board member of the largest private, what is it called? Prison. Like some people invest in real estate. The private investment in prisons is Thurgood Marshall's son. You can't make this shit up, talking to dummies. But they think, oh, well, what about those white people? What about those Asians? What about their descendants now is what you're saying? Well, it doesn't work when you're talking about Indians who actually were impacted by the blood quantum laws. But Auntie Maxine, the Democrat, who they say we're not Democrats, well, she's over the Black and the Native American argument. And she's the one who most recently presented in front of the Senate about the discrimination that occurred with the blood quantum laws and the Dawes Act. Stupid. But these people are dumb. And when I talk about the Black Farmers Act, and when they say, show me some legislation, Supreme Court justice, and I'm like, well, Byron Allen is the one who's using Comcast, and he's using the 1862. Well, show me the legal case. And I'm like, yeah, they're still talking about the same thing from the Black Farmers Act. Very small niche, but it's about land. And the rest of these people can't move forward from the 20s and 30s, let alone the 60s, and now they think they can talk about the modern Black woman. I'd be like, look, if y'all don't learn to defend the First Amendment, then what the fuck are you even talking about Black experience for? Because the Black experience has always been one of just getting to the constitutional rights, which would entitle you to the benefits of a citizen. And those benefits are the federal treasury and now the partnership to the Federal Reserve. And when it comes to forgiveness, yeah, that's an application process to where you had to write down something on the application. And if you didn't apply, then you weren't discriminated against. And if you didn't apply because you didn't get the message, it's probably because you didn't subscribe to B1 Brother Moses. And the economics or the civil rights argument may have been lost. So I'm going to do what I do. And I'm going to use my skills in 7 years of financial services to open up here at the end of the message or the sermon. I'm going to open up my access line if anyone has any questions or if anyone has any comments or if anybody just wants to say thank you. Fire signs are good and respected. I appreciate the swords because they'll swear up and down that I was the one who turned on O'Shea by fucking with Taz, who was the one who went up and stood the line when his wife was the one being attacked. And I wouldn't have met neither Taz nor Nyla Says, which is Taz's real wife. And it's not just about getting your channel taken down on Facebook. They do that same thing to people like Minister Farrakhan. Today, they are writing letters about terrorism and attaching it to the manosphere. And the nigga who did a hell of a job moving it into a Negro manosphere conversation on YouTube, when they did everything to prevent it by blocking Google Hangouts. That same nigga at the time used my real government name even then. I used my own name. I wasn't even B1 Brother Moses then. And my big bro said some shit earlier. I'm going to go on and check out his stream now. I'm going to give people 10 minutes to go on in and have a conversation because I'm going to stand on my principles. I talked about messianism. I talked about it from a lens of it being connected to the church. Shirley Caesar is a representation of a Black woman who had a powerful voice inside the church. They tried to silence her. She made a song about John in the Bible using their own scriptures, saying, look, you're using it as discrimination against Black women. And Black women started transitioning outside of the church. And in order to stop that, there was this message of what we need our building fund. And they started building and basing it off the backs of women who were there because the men had already left, as we know. The men weren't, they may have been the deacons, but they weren't putting no money in them offering trays. Nigga, that's the offering, not the trash. And the men, if the church was actually effective, then why would the black community be in its state when there were so many churches, and then competing, there were so many liquor stores? Now, if our schools were the pipeline that were supposed to be the prevention, and the miseducation of the Negro by Carter G. Woodson told us that their curriculum was the problem, then it would have evolved into a conscious community. Let's conduct a study and analysis of what's wrong with the curriculum. But at some point, they left out the actual facts about Thomas Sowell and economy when he linked it to the welfare state as a conservative black, and made the welfare state argument that said it was the worst thing that happened to America. But when B1 Brother Moses, who's supposed to be super liberal, shows you the data today, well, there'll be no argument, because I speak in facts. And we'll let the folks who want to keep giving it to the church to build their funds build. But they will not villainize black women when they decide that they want their own acres. And they may not decide that they want a Rottweiler kennel, because dogs, regardless of whatever their breed, are worth $15,000. But if you give a black woman $15,000, she's a traitor. No. I'm going to give you facts. And my facts will be boring and my streams will be long. But now you got the link. Let me take myself off so I could B1 salute for the last time. There's 9 minutes remaining, and I could do some selfish shit and start showing people my track record or my resume. I could start name dropping, or I can get real personal and make it about me and my wife's experience. Telling you again that we met at the Child Abuse Prevention Council, which is a government public-private partnership through education to help create access, to improve the quality of life, to drive awareness, to do all of these things inside of our community. She went on to get her doctorate. In our struggle love years, she had to support a disabled veteran through recovery efforts that I was not willing to admit. That's my personal story. Having to experience the broken buck syndrome, as one person would call it, if it's a syndrome now or a theory about being broken in the Army. Yeah, this is a reality as we move to connect with veterans. There are a lot of veterans who never received the full benefits that they earned, to the extent of being able to open up a Rottweiler kennel and have all of those acres to where they can drive their carts. Don't show the black man's garage with his toys and his muscle machines. Don't ask the black man how many times he feeds his dogs. Don't ask him how many dogs he has at his kennel. Don't ask him about the origins, if they're European or American breeds. Don't ask him how long their noses are. Don't make it about how long their coats are. If their faces are light brown or orange or caramel, cinnamon, or dark brown. If you want your Rottweiler to have a dark brown nose that's smaller than the other canine breed, talk to him. And if you give somebody my name, then talk about civil rights and economics. But understand the principles that I stand on as a vet. Understand the Buffalo Soldiers from those who left but didn't go to Africa. And when they went to Africa, it wasn't to support Rommel. They didn't run to London to laugh at who was actually invading during World War I, invading Ethiopia, which became the space where Jamaicans then called that man God and black man worship. But the man who then ran. No, they didn't run to London to laugh at the man who was actually getting invaded physically by Mussolini and those Italians. And they don't hide behind Umar Johnson. And I call it straight how I see it. No, if you are pro Umar Johnson and the Prince of Pan-African, then once again, you're for the exploitation of the black woman, at the destruction of black woman, calling her a traitor if she aligns with options that are outside of the black man, who wants the right to financial abortion, while at the same time saying that that is genocide. Keep backflipping and tumbling like a tumbleweed. But for those who are part of the legacy of the Buffalo Soldiers, who said we have other fights to fight if we want to expand opportunity or access in America for Black people, or in their case, American descendants of slavery, who can trace their legacy back to the 1800s or 1700s and 1600s, and it's still not Africa yet on whole. If you get back to the 1820s, yeah, you might find a Jamaican. But based on DNA, you would have to be in support of the mitochondrial DNA, support of the Black woman and her right to produce or not. And in the 1800s and before, that wasn't her choice. Feminism, being the woman saying, well, I should have rights as well, or women's suffrage, and her separation from her rights being attached to her husband, is a good thing if you want to preserve the legacy of civil rights or humanism. But if you want to move into transhumanism, that's a conversation we aren't ready to have yet. They don't understand trans in any form of the word, not even transportation, which is why they're stuck in Philadelphia talking shit and not taking the link when the husband of the woman says, I have a problem with you putting a mustache on my wife because my family doesn't believe in that trans shit. Once you get to having a conversation with B1 Brother Moses, I would have to tell you, yeah, I do. I believe that they've gotten to the point in the eugenics society that science-wise, they do the gender reveal before the baby is born, and they get to decide. And if the man is the one who's arguing for an abortion, then she should have the right to use that same science and medical information to decide. She did not get his sperm. He has the Audi. She had to be receptive of whatever it was that he said he had to offer. The legal system might, oh, well, she was lying. The legal system might accept a PowerPoint presentation by some ally of an ally, third party of a third party as legal. And they may never have to answer for jurisdiction of venue being online, a trial by jury. When the protest happens after criminal justice negotiations fail and the people are in the streets and former police officers like Brandon Tatum, SWAT officers, give him his title, advocate for other officers to not protect the protesters, but to run over the protesters. And then they use their platforms that get millions of people, mostly white people, who also agree that the protesters should be run over, the humans, that the allies of the allies are the ones who should be killed in the streets due to vehicular manslaughter, who receive primary source funding from white radicals, and who unapologetically benefits as and operates as alternative right media in Arizona, then gets up there and cries yesterday, nigga, you can't make it up, cries yesterday, no tears, but cries that he wants to move out of Arizona. Well, me and my wife we just got here from California. We did benefit from the VA having that partnership, being able to get the VA home loan. So we finally got our starter home in the husband's name. My wife got her ring. Our children are Black. We are descendants. And in my household, yes, that will include those descendants today who don't know, because it's about bloodline. And they already have the automated compensation process. It doesn't have nothing to do with our politics. That battle's already been fought. Salute. I'm B1 Brother Moses. That's all I got, and I'm out.